Hello. It's really quite hard to know how to introduce tonight's story other than to just say, wow, the love in some families is incredible. Michelle and Jono Harley always wanted to have kids, but like a lot of people, they had fertility issues that caused them a lot of sadness and trauma. Michelle couldn't carry a baby to term, and that is where her 52-year-old mum and her sister-in-law stepped in.
It's like that Kath and Kim episode. Oh.
I think Michelle always wanted to be a mother. She's a school teacher, she loves kids.
You're looking at each other.
Yeah, you're still looking at each other. Jono and I have been trying for close to 4 years now to start a family. Keep your hand on your belly, that was lovely. I know, it feels so unnatural, but...
I'd always wanted to be a father. There was no question of doubt. That was what I always wanted to do. But this is a whole different ball game.
It's not like you decide to have infertility issues, and so there's not much you can do about that. It's not a choice. Infertility sucks. It is just all-consuming. It's all you think about. It is all you want. You will do anything in order to become pregnant and have a child.
But there's not just one way to create a family.
I always wondered why women held their belly in the photos. I thought, geez, it's not going anywhere. I certainly didn't expect that at 52 I'd be carrying my grandchild.
That's cute as.
I think the children will know from a very young age that this is their story and how they came to be. Sophie's still quite high up, whereas I've dropped down. She's still got a way to go, so.
My husband Michael and I explained it to our children from day one. We explained that a doctor was going to put a baby that was Jono and Michelle's baby into Mummy's tummy, and they just went, okay.
There's been, how is your sister pregnant with your baby? How does that work?
Oh, just looking down at the bumps for me, guys. Mama and Sophie refer to themselves as the oven or the incubator. They see themselves completely as a grandmother and an auntie. I'm so excited.
About time. Yeah. To people watching on the outside, it would be a bit strange, but it's our story.
I was born in Wollongong and I've lived here my whole life. I had a pretty normal upbringing. My parents didn't have much. They got married really young. I first met Jono in Year 12 at high school. No sparks, no love at first sight, no nothing.
And we became quite good friends over probably a 6-month period. And then we went in our separate ways. We both went to different universities.
And then he moved back to Wollongong and I ran into him and I was like, oh, you got attractive.
And then it all sort of snowballed from there quite quickly. She's a very genuine person, got a big heart, and she's just got a lot of time for people. We dated for, gosh, it was probably only about 2 years before I asked Michelle to move in with me. And then we were engaged within a couple of months of that and married within 6 months.
For the very first time, Mr. and Mrs. Harley.
Michelle's Macedonian, so we had the big ethnic wedding. And there was about, I think it was about 180 people there, and probably only 25 of the people were my invites.
When did I realise fertility was going to be a challenge? From the day I got my period. With the amount of pain that I was in, I always thought that I might have trouble falling pregnant, to the point where, as like an 18, 19-year-old, I had my IVF fund, all my money that I had saved away. All of the gynecologists around Wollongong know my private parts quite intimately.
Do you want to come with me? Yep. Let's go in the consulting room.
Because I have had that many scans.
Dr. Raifman told us that Michelle had a unicorn uterus, so only half of her uterus had formed.
And just to give a comparison, that's a picture of a normal uterus with the 2 ovaries and the 2 fallopian tube. But in your case, that's how tiny the uterus is. It's really microscopic.
I call it a unicorn uterus sometimes because we're quite rare.
People having a unicornuate uterus can carry a pregnancy up to term, but all the studies showed that there is an increased risk of obstetrical complication like preterm delivery.
Michelle had made it clear to me early on in our relationship that she might have difficulties falling pregnant, and I just said to her, I said, that's not a worry, I'm sure we'll sort something out.
But I always had a sense that this wasn't going to be an easy journey.
We'd started trying to conceive, I think, almost after we got engaged. We just knew that it was going to be tricky. Obviously, Michelle's IVF fund that she'd sort of squirreled away was a bit of a godsend.
We started IVF in 2020. We implanted one of those embryos and that didn't stick.
We did another round of egg collection.
And that time we got so many more eggs. And then the first one that we put in stuck.
And I remember getting a phone call from Michelle saying that she was pregnant. Was I overly excited? No. I just went, oh, okay, like, it's worked. And I think that was because I knew that there was a long road ahead. Michelle was quite guarded through the whole process. I mean, she'd sort of say, why are you looking at baby names? Don't sort of get your hopes up almost. Michelle would go to sleep and I'd whip out the phone on the other side of the bed and I'd be there sort of writing down baby names in secrecy.
And then one night at 7 weeks, I stood up and I hemorrhaged and I lost, I think, about 700 mils of blood. And then the ambulance came, took me to emergency. And the next morning, I got an ultrasound and the sonographer said, there's the heartbeat. And I was like, excuse me? I was bleeding so much. How was that not a miscarriage? 24 weeks was my goal because at 24 weeks, that's when doctors say that pregnancies are viable and we can start saving this baby. But at 18 weeks, my water broke.
They were on their way to the hospital and I was tearing up at the time and trying to think maybe she could get to 22 weeks and then maybe there'd be more chance, more hope.
Had another ultrasound, the baby still had a heartbeat, but not for much longer. My infection levels were rising and the baby was getting sick. And so we had to say goodbye.
There were probably 5 other birthing suites there, all with women screaming, giving birth, babies crying, and we're just stuck down the end, about to give birth to a baby that won't make it. Yeah, it was horrible. When the baby was born, he was a fully formed human. He was just tiny. We called him Ralph. He'd already passed away. He'd passed away on the way out, so we didn't really get to meet him, I suppose. And I remember when the doctor told me that he was a boy, I just cried so much. I always wanted to have a son.
I was wailing. I just felt like my body had failed my child and that I couldn't keep it safe for long enough.
The doctor said to us, okay, we need to push out the placenta now. And that's where everything just got so much worse. There was just an enormous gush of blood. Floor, walls, it was like something in a movie. It was horrible. And I remember at that moment just thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna lose her.
Michelle had hemorrhaged, so poor Jono was there with Ralph and his wife's been taken off into surgery, so just, yeah, it was just absolutely heartbreaking.
So I'm standing in a room on a rainy day holding my dead son, just looking out the window because I didn't want to turn around and see all of the blood. And I remember thinking, oh, what if Michelle doesn't make it? What do I do? I've got nothing.
We were worried that we'd lose Michelle. She wouldn't make it, and it was quite touch and go.
Yeah, it was the best part of an hour before they came back and told me that she was okay and that they'd managed to stabilise her.
We were able to spend a few days with Ralph, and we were able to pick him up and hold him and be with him. Saying goodbye to Ralph was so sad. Knowing that I wasn't going to be able to hold him again, or look at him again, or feel him again. Yeah, it was... yeah, it sucked. No parent should have to say goodbye to a kid.
This is a photo of the day Ralph was born. Very sad time. Michelle nearly lost her life trying to have a baby, and the doctors then said that, you know, they can't try again. She's at too great a risk.
My sister just said, no, I'm not allowing Michelle to fall pregnant again. I will be a surrogate for you. And the same thing happened with Michelle's mum.
Oh, I guess that's the only way that, you know, you can have a family. Never at any point did they say, will you do this for us? We offered it to them without being asked.
Yeah, for Jazzy and I, it was, this is how we're going to help, this is how we can help, this is how they can have a family that they want.
It's more popular overseas, I suppose. Like in America, I think you can just go and pay someone to carry a baby for you.
Commercial surrogacy isn't an option in Australia. It's not legal, so you can't go out and pay someone to be a surrogate. So it's got to be someone that offers.
I still can't believe that we have 2 people that are willing to do this.
There are a lot of people who do not find a surrogate. So the fact that they came up not with 1 but with 2 was totally, something that was completely unexpected. And I'm like, wow, can we do this?
We're definitely not doing this for money. We're doing it for love.
We were mourning the loss of our son, but we had hope. My sister had 3 kids of her own, and Michelle's mum had 2 kids of her own, so they had a pretty good track record.
As a 52-year-old woman, my mum was quite close to doctors saying no, she's too old. And so we had to rush through this whole process in order for her to be considered a viable surrogate.
The surrogate is going to expose herself to all sorts of potential medical problems related to the pregnancy. So, for example, pregnant women after the age of 38 or 40 have a higher risk of gestational diabetes, hypertension.
Thank you. The doctors were very cautious. Dr. Rafeman said, look, I need to make sure that you're going to be okay and you're not going to be put at risk. So we had to go and get lots of tests. And then we had to have psychological counselling. I honestly didn't think I'd be doing this at my age. But, you know, I'm so grateful that I can.
The counselling sessions were a lot of questions on how we would feel knowing that we are trusting someone else to grow our child, how Mum and how Sophie would feel giving up a child.
I've never felt maternal to this child. It's not my embryo. It's not my DNA. They asked how would I feel about attachment to this child afterwards. And it's not like I have to give it up and never see it again. I'll always be its grandma. It's just they need an oven and I have to cook it, so...
So our embryos were made from my eggs and Jono's sperm, and so Mama and Sophie are just carrying and growing babies that are genetically ours.
It's just having an understanding, and I think the more people find out about it, the more it's going to become more common. It's not just the Kardashians that are able to do this.
In terms of timing, why we have 2 surrogates pregnant at the same time is purely based on their own wants. So my mum wanted to be pregnant sooner rather than later because of her age, and Sophie wanted to get this pregnancy done so she could then focus on her career.
I'm not nervous. I'm very much looking forward to it.
We were never expecting Michelle's mum to fall pregnant straight away. She ended up falling pregnant on the first go. And then 7 weeks later, Sophie fell pregnant on the first go.
We have a girl's name, but we don't have a boy's name. There's a lot of feelings that go along with this surrogacy journey. Number one, it is so weird watching your mum be pregnant.
Michelle has always wanted to be pregnant, give birth, have a baby, do it all herself. So going through the surrogacy process, the hardest thing emotionally for her was not carrying her own children.
It's taken its toll on her emotionally, not to be able to, you know, feel the first kick or the movement. She has missed out a lot.
We would go to Michelle's parents' house every Sunday for family dinner, and there would be tears in the car on the way home.
The feelings that I'm feeling is 99% gratitude and then 1% jealousy. I am quite jealous, but also what's my other option? And so it's just, it is what it is.
I've managed to get gestational diabetes with this pregnancy, and I've got a strict diet I have to follow. I've got to have a snack in the afternoon. It's been 28 years since I was pregnant last. Surprisingly, it's not as hard as I thought it would be, apart from a bit of morning sickness in the beginning. And I've got gestational diabetes, which has been a bit of a science experiment trying to manage your levels and your sugar levels. I've got to really watch what I eat and the types of sugars I have.
I feel guilty that I'm doing this to their bodies. I feel guilty that their bodies are changing.
I've got to do this 4 times a day.
I feel like I'm making them do this.
Let's see if we get a good number today. The diabetes has always played a part in my mind. I'm thinking, you know, am I hurting the grandchild? Have I eaten the wrong thing? That's a good reading. It's like babysitting your grandchild for 9 months. You don't want to give it back with, you know, it's got a lump on its head or it's fallen, you know, on your watch.
I will be eternally in debt to her. Just, like, who does that for someone? It's just such a lovely thing to do.
Jasmina didn't even tell her close friends until she was 20 weeks pregnant. She invited everyone over for dinner one night and took all their jackets off and stood up and said, "I'm pregnant," with no other context. And then everyone's looked at Michelle's dad and he goes, "Well, it's not mine."
I do get some funny looks. I went into an antenatal appointment with my son-in-law, and we must have looked aside with a youngish man and this old lady, and they're sitting there waiting for their appointment.
Can you turn the oven bottom oven on to 200, please? Being pregnant a 4th time was definitely physically challenging, especially with the demands of the 3 children, working full time. I hadn't even discussed it with Michael. I think I turned to him and said, "Oh, I'm going to be a surrogate for Jono and Michelle," and he was like, "Oh, okay."
Add salad leaves to the dressing, that's why. So grab
I remember pulling myself up a few times thinking, I need to talk to this baby. Michelle and Jono aren't here to talk to the baby. I need to talk to the baby. And I think I did disconnect myself a bit from the emotional side of it during the pregnancy. I suppose just my way of coping.
Ready for baby day?
I sure am. It's finally come. Oh, can't believe it. We got there. The doctor said that the safest option for me is a cesarean, and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
All right, let's go.
Let's do this.
I'm so excited for them to be here, but I am also so scared that something will happen.
I think I'll be overjoyed to finally see my daughter become the mother that she's always wanted to be. I'll be so happy for them both. They finally become parents after such a difficult and long road to get there. Yep, we'll get right into there.
Going into the birth, I was excited, but I was so nervous as well.
It was very intense. It was very emotional. I mean, all we wanted was a baby that was alive, to be honest.
When Hugo was born, I was so excited and I immediately felt like he was like my son. You're so cute. Yeah. But I also was in so much disbelief that I couldn't let myself feel such strong emotions towards him. It took a little while for it to sink in that, oh, this is real now. I don't need to be scared anymore.
I can't believe it. I still can't believe it. Even looking at him, it's like, wow.
I'm so happy. You're so cute. We're gonna have so much fun.
I will never forget that feeling after all that we had been through. We were very happy, proud parents.
This feels so surreal. Look at your eyes. Yeah.
I was just so excited. It was just, we'd finally gotten there. It was 4.5 years in the making. And we'd sort of gotten to almost the end of the journey, I suppose.
There we go.
All right. Ready to change your nappy? Come on. This is your favourite room. We brought Hugo home, and because we were so guarded, we hadn't been to any classes, we had no idea what we were doing.
Well, in the hospital, the midwives were shocked at how little I knew about caring for a child. I think because we had experienced child loss in the past, I didn't want to get myself excited.
I just remember being up for quite a few hours, just in bed, just holding him, going, gosh, like, what do I do with this baby? How do I like console him, stop him from crying?
Oh. Hugo is great. He sleeps really well, he eats really well. When one of us wants to eat or have a shower, the other one will take him, and it's manageable. But when we have two, I feel like it's going to be a bit more difficult.
Tomorrow I'll be 38 weeks, but the doctors want to induce me early just to make sure that everything is fine.
Leave. You can get out now. Evacuate now.
When we went into the hospital, I was the most nervous I'd ever been. Being induced was never something I wanted to do. My birth plan, I suppose, had gone out the door.
And Sophie had never had an epidural before, but we just said to her, we said, Soph, you're not going to win a medal for this one. It's not even your baby that you're pushing out. Just have the epidurals. And she goes, I think I will.
Hold it and push. Keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Great, Soph, great.
Sophie was pushing, and then the midwife said to me, oh, do you want to pull the baby out?
Oh my God.
And I had never even thought about that as being an option.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, hold on.
It was a very surreal experience being in a room with your sister while she's giving birth to your baby, and then passing the baby to his mum, Michelle, who's not in the bed.
Happy birthday, man. You got him?
Because of the success of Hugo's birth, I was able to be a lot more emotionally present for Spencer's birth, which was really nice.
Up to the bed.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay.
And Jono came around to cut the umbilical cord, and he's taken a few steps forward, doesn't want to see things.
So I sort of do this awkward shuffle and back in, and then sort of cut the cord over here, and by that stage Sophie's there just yelling at me saying, I don't care. We've come this far, it doesn't matter.
It's so peaceful.
Yeah.
To walk out of the hospital having given birth and go home without a baby. Well, that was probably the weirdest sensation.
Oh, look, we're outside. This is the hospital.
There'll always be that special bond between the two of us, and I think I'll always feel bad when I miss a milestone, but that's also part of life. I'm not his mum, I'm his auntie. But yes, very much a doting auntie.
Hey Huey, it's Mum. It's Mum.
There we go.
Having one baby was good. Two babies.
One baby was easy. That was a breeze.
Having two babies, different story.
Hugo was born in 2022 in December, and Spencer's born in 2023 in January. They're not twins. They'll probably end up in the same year at school, so I'm sure we'll always get the questions.
So this is Hugo J, and the J is for Jasmina, after my mum who carried him. And Spencer is Spencer Louis, and that's after Sophie, because Sophie's middle name is Louise. I'm never going to keep this story from my babies. I've already planned on printing photos of Sophie and my mum pregnant with them in their rooms, and I'll always say, that's you in there. And so it won't ever be a moment where you reveal a story to them. They'll always just know.
Because someone is 4 months old, aren't you?
I think it's important to talk about this and talk about not only the good that's come from the story, but the loss that we had as well. I think we owe that to Ralph, and just let people know that, yeah, these things happen to people. There's no point just sweeping that under the rug or just not talking about it.
You right with it, Mum?
Yeah, he's fine. So much fun, and we can always hand them back at the end of the day.
That's exactly right, we can.
They've brought so much joy into our lives. There's tears, there's screams, there's wee everywhere. There's all of the messy sides of babies as well, but we're just over the moon.
The cesarean, it took me a few weeks to get better, but it was so worth it. Look what we've got now. We've got little Hugo here. 100%, without a doubt, I'd do it again.
My recovery's been really good. Yeah, it's been quite easy when you don't actually have a newborn to look after.
So we put them down at 7 and they woke up at 5, but then fell asleep again until 7 a.m. Both of them.
Both?
Yeah.
How did you get two babies that
Just
do
really
that?
good parents, hey? We're just really good at this.
It's amazing to watch Jono and Michelle be parents to two beautiful boys. And we've all been there for that entire roller coaster ride. And just to have it end in happiness is all that anyone could ever want.
Over here, Huey.
Gunk in your idea, buddy.
Get your hand out of your brother's back.
Back on this side now.
I kind of feel like, why me? What have I done to deserve such lovely people in my life that are willing to do this for me? Without them, we wouldn't have a family. So, is there an emotion big enough to explain how you feel, how thankful you feel for people like that? Yeah.